I'm Taylor Smurl, and this is Neat. Welcome. Over on the podcast, we had a little rundown of some of Pennsylvania's boozy history as a little bit of a thank you to the Keystone State for pushing us over the Electoral College vote we needed in this American presidential election. Since we recorded the podcast, Georgia's been declared, Arizona has, Nevada has by some agencies, so a couple other states have given us over that 270. Hell, every state in the union has some cool history that we could delve into at some point, but today is about PA. So we've got two cocktails today for you using Pennsylvania-made products. We've got some Pennsylvania booze, we've got some Pennsylvania modifiers. I'm excited, so we're just gonna get right into it. All right. So the base for both of my cocktails is gonna be a Pennsylvania-made rye whiskey. Now, of course, we talked about the Whiskey Rebellion over on the podcast. Pennsylvania was the hosting grounds for one of America's first great stress tests of its new government when they attempted to tax our whiskey to mixed results. This whiskey I'm using today is Dad's Hat. In honor of my dad, who's not on the video today. It's kind of sad after having him here last week. We'll figure out how to do like a split screen video soon enough, but you got just me this week. It's a bummer. You're bummed, I'm bummed, we're all bummed. So Dad's Hat whiskey is from Bristol, Pennsylvania. This particular one is their rye whiskey. They got a whole family of whiskeys, but this particular rye whiskey, it's overproof. It's 90 proof, so 45% alcohol, and the mash build on this, I think, influences the flavor really nicely. It's 80% rye, 15% malted barley, and 5% malted rye. So that element of maltiness, you really do get in the flavor. You get some sweet breadiness in the flavor that I think really balances out that high rye spice nicely. It's a really beautiful rye. It's a really affordable rye. It's about $35 a bottle. I don't know how widely their distribution is, but I was really happy to find it here in New York. I've worked with them before at a couple bars, and I like this product. So that's gonna be the base of both of our cocktails today. For the first drink, we're gonna go real basic here, but we're gonna bring in another ingredient we talked about briefly on the podcast. That was Birch Beer. I couldn't find a little bottle, they only had a big guy. I don't know why Pennsylvania Dutch original recipe Birch Beer is at my Brooklyn bodega, and I'm not gonna question it. It was meant to be. I was meant to make these drinks for you. Birch Beer, of course, made from the birch tree sap that only grows in a certain region along the Appalachian mountain range, so through Pennsylvania. Birch Beer is similar to root beer or sarsaparilla soda, if you've had either of those. The only difference that I really pick up on, flavor-wise, it has kind of that subtle, I want to say kind of dirty mint flavor. That sounds gross, but I mean it in a good way. I like the dirty mint flavor that Fernet has. So I'm going to be using a little Fernet in this cocktail to kind of relate to that. The other thing that I love about this particular brand, because this is definitely a mass-produced, this is not artisanal, I don't think. This is corn syrup and artificial and natural flavorings and carbonated water. But also, it's probably not going to show up super well in the camera, but this is red 40. As soon as I cracked the bottle, you got a little bit of pink foam on it, and I'm like, oh, this is red. So I'm really excited to make a drink with this because the color in this, I know the right attitude with bartending is to be super about all natural, all harvested from the ground ingredients, but sometimes when something is just incredibly artificial, I kind of love it, and I think that's what we're gonna get from this. As you can tell, I already kind of know because I've messed with it a little bit. Yeah, so what we're gonna be doing is a very basic, very simple drink. Think the philosophy of a Moscow Mule or a Mule Build, which is a base spirit, ginger beer, and a little bit of citrus, and we're gonna be kind of cutting that with like a Fernet and Coke. So we're gonna use a little bit of our whiskey, a little bit of our Fernet, some citrus, and the Birch Beer to top. This drink, I'm just gonna build in the glass. I'm just gonna do a touch of lemon juice in this, just like a ½ ounce. And then I'm gonna do a ½ ounce of Fernet Branca. I'm gonna do a full ounce of my dad's hat. Just an ounce of my dad's hat. He just calls this whiskey hat. It's a bad joke for you, Dad. All right, I'm gonna give this a little bit of a stir, just while I've got the base ingredients in there. Then I'm gonna top it with my Birch Beer. Smells so good. I'm gonna put a little lemon on there as a garnish. Boop. All right, there we go. I like this a lot. It's a simple drink, there's nothing fancy here, but I do think it does a lot of things right. The Birch Beer is very sweet. It is corn syrup, it is sweet, but it does have a lot of good flavor there. And that bitterness of the Fernet cuts through a lot of that sweetness of the Birch Beer, and it finishes on that like earthy, minty note that you associate with Fernet. But the whiskey definitely comes in, you get that nice maltiness, you get that spiciness. Nothing complex, nothing crazy, but definitely something that is super refreshing, not too sweet, really bright, has a nice bitterness, something that celebrates 2 beautiful Pennsylvania ingredients. Okay, what are we gonna call it? So we'll just keep it simple since our next cocktail is gonna honor Philadelphia. We'll make this one for Pittsburgh. We'll call it a Pittsburgh Highball. So that's some Pennsylvania Dutch Birch Beer, some Pennsylvania Rye whiskey, a little bit of Fernet, a little bit of lemon. Here's your Pittsburgh Highball. So my second drink, the name came first, which never happens for me. I'm terrible with names, people, places, and definitely cocktails. But I made the joke on the podcast that I wanted to make a cocktail called the Flipadelphia because, well, it's an Always Sunny in Philadelphia reference. And also Philadelphia kind of, you know, a lot of those votes coming in from that area were the first clue that we were going to flip the election. So, seems like it makes sense. Also because a flip is actually a kind of cocktail. Now, the term flip in cocktail history has varied meanings. In its origin, it actually related to like putting a hot poker in your drink to warm it and cause it to bubble up. For a while, it referred to putting beer in your cocktail, something else carbonated. In more recent times, when we say flip, we usually are referencing putting a whole egg in your drink. So a flip is a drink that would contain a whole egg, and it would have that kind of frothiness that we get from the egg white. It would also have a creamy fattiness from the egg yolk. And they're delicious. Flips are great. So I'm gonna make a flip build. However, this is just a me thing. I'm a vegan, I don't eat eggs. So I'm gonna be using my tried and true aquafaba to provide my egg-like consistency. It's not gonna do like a perfect 1-to-1 because while aquafaba, which is chickpea brine, for those of you who don't know, it's just like literally the liquid that chickpeas soak in. It's great for mimicking egg whites. It doesn't really mimic egg yolk in any way. So I thought about it, like I could put some coconut oil in there, or like some melted vegan butter, or even like some melted vegan ice cream, something like that. And I think those things would work with this. For me, I'm just gonna keep it an aquafaba cocktail. Keep it simple, but if you're at home, if you're not a vegan and you wanna try this drink with a whole egg, I think it would work really well. The flavors make sense with that. So go to town. So, for my Flipadelphia, I'm gonna use about 3/4 ounce of aquafaba. The next ingredient is gonna be another little homage to PA. When I was looking around for things you should try from Pennsylvania, on a couple lists, apple butter came up. And I mean, apple butter it's a southern thing. It's definitely an Appalachian thing. I grew up with apple butter, but I do love it, and I do love it in cocktails. And apparently Pennsylvania makes a lot of good apple butter. For those of you that don't know what apple butter is, there's no butter involved. It is literally just like super finely pureed applesauce with a lot of spices in it. You like eat it on toast. It's delicious. But I have some local apple butter, New York local apple butter, that I'm gonna use as my sweetener in this cocktail. Yeah, I'm gonna use about an ounce of my apple spread, apple butter. For my acid, I'm going to actually use grapefruit juice. My thought on this is that the apple spread has a lot of cinnamon to it, but because it also has like fresh apples in it, it brings a good amount of acidity to the table. And when I first made this cocktail, I used lemon instead of grapefruit. It was almost too dry. Part of that is that aquafaba and also egg whites do this a little bit too. They have a certain kind of like chalky kind of sulfuric quality that tends to dry out your palate. So that's not bad, there's nothing wrong with that, but in this case, I think that the apple plus the lemon without additional sweetener just created too dry of a drink. So I decided to opt for grapefruit juice so I could get the bitterness that I wanted, but also get a little bit of additional sweetness and a little bit more volume. So I'm gonna use an ounce of my grapefruit juice. Fresh squeezed, as always. Not because I'm a snob, just because citrus breaks down really fast, so you want it as fresh as possible. And then of course, I'm gonna use 2 ounces of my dad's hat. Just gonna keep making me laugh. Whiskey. And then I'm gonna just throw in a couple dashes of angostura bitters. Now, with an egg cocktail, you'd want to dry shake and then shake over ice, which I am going to do. But a lot of times with egg whites, you wait to use your bitters until the end to put a design on top. Aquafaba doesn't give you that really thick, rich head that lets you draw on top anyway, so I'm just gonna put it in the drink. Just let it mix up in there. You can do both, you can do neither, you can wait till the end. That's up to you, depending on if you're using the whole egg or not. This is the dry shake. We talked about this on our shaker episode. But if you need a review, dry shaking is basically when you're using egg whites or an emulsifier, you're just shaking without ice in there so the elements combine properly. One important thing to note when you're dry shaking is that your tins, as your volume emulsifies and kind of foams up in there, think about whipping up a meringue. It's kind of the same thing. It's gonna want to expand. So make sure to use 2 hands on this step, always, if you're using a shaker like this. All right. I'm gonna double strain this, and you definitely want to double strain this because there's gonna be possible egg pieces, there's gonna be apple butter remnants. You definitely want to fine strain the heck out of this drink. And I'm gonna give this as a garnish a little grapefruit twist. So there's my Flipadelphia. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, that's really nice. It's really balanced. The grapefruit and the apple spices, they really play well together. The rye, once again, I think that weirdly enough, the part I'm tasting the most, I think, is that little bit of malt. You get that nice warm sweetness from it. The rye spice is definitely playing with all of those nice spices in the apple butter. Also, not a complex cocktail at all. Get some grapefruit, get some rye whiskey, get some apple butter, some bitters, you're good to go. Egg, aquafaba, whatever you prefer. Cheers to you, Pennsylvania. Thank you for the inspiration for these 2 delicious drinks. I hope everybody is, partying, congratulating themselves briefly. Then it's back to work. We're all aware of that. We have now maybe the opportunity to make some good forward motion, but that's only gonna happen by having that same mass of people that showed out to vote to also press for important social changes with our new administration. So if you want to support us, we have a Patreon. We have free video content at just $1. There's stickers and coasters and our Undying Love at higher tiers. My Undying Love is a higher tier, okay? Sorry. If you want to email us, we are neattheboozecast@gmail.com. You can tweet at us. You can find us on Instagram at neatboozecast. Reach out to us with questions, comments, episode suggestions. I've been Taylor Smurl, and this has been a close proximity to my father. And this has been Neat. Flipadelphia. It was either this or like a rum ham cocktail, and that would have been way harder to do as a vegan.